everybody. Welcome to our podcast, The Old College Try. I'm Peg Keough, joined by my guest, Suzanne Hanna. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with her. Suzanne is the founder of Suzanne Hanna Coaching, where she helps college and teen girls cultivate self-compassion, self-reliance, and self-confidence. Today, Suzanne and I will be talking all about freshman year in college, how to handle the emotional and the academic challenges, as well as feeling homesick. Suzanne has coached hundreds of girls to help them be their best selves. So if you have a daughter or a son that's in this stage of their life, this will be a great conversation, so settle in and enjoy. All right, we are back again. So I am talking to Suzanne again. So this is our two-parters. This is the second half of our doubleheader here. So if you didn't hear the first episode, which aired last week, definitely go check it out. We were talking all about high school kids, a little bit more of a focus on girls, but information for boy kids too. So check that out if you haven't. I'll do a little mini recap in a minute, but definitely go check that out because our conversation today is going to be slightly different. But in case you didn't hear yesterday, I want to make sure that I introduce Suzanne. But before we go there, we will do our usual. Suzanne is a huge trooper. She wants to share a song again, which is great. So as most of our listeners know, Matt and I are super into music. So we're building this playlist for you, the CAP playlist, I think is what it's called. And we've got our favorites and then we have our guests like Suzanne. So Suzanne, what song do you want to share today?
Okay, so this song is from the year that we dropped our son off in college and I mourned him. And so it was like the Empty Nest song and it's Saturn by SZA. I love that song and I played it.
What's the band?
It's SZA.
Okay. I haven't heard of that.
It's pronounced SZA, I know. But that song is so amazing and there's so much feeling to it. And I would play it in the car or it would come on in the car and my daughter would be like, oh God, here she goes again. Because it would make me so sad. So that just makes me laugh. Every time I hear it, I get that longing feeling because I remember what it was like to drop him off. And it did not feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that today. Talk about the drop off and how colleges tee that up because it's not just like everything in college planning. No two schools are exactly the same. So
they're so different.
So quick intro. Suzanne has a background working with kids, extensive background as an English teacher and then as an assistant vice principal. Then she started, how long ago did you start your own business?
It's 2 years this August.
2 years. She went out on her own. She's got her consulting business, Suzanne Hanna Coaching. So definitely check her out. But why don't you just share a little bit about what you're doing now?
Sure. Yes. I am a life coach for college girls. So I work one-on-one with girls privately to help them through any struggles they might have through their senior year and through the college transition and through college. And I make sure that I have a safe space where girls don't feel shamed or judged. And I help them with social stresses. I can help them academically, having been a teacher and an instructional facilitator for years as well. And so I can help them understand what it means to teach themselves in college because that's a new thing. And also with the social pressures that girls are under. And so it's just a place where girls can be themselves and talk through things. And it's the best job ever. I've loved it.
Yeah. And I think it's perfect to have you on because it's, as I said in the last episode, it's the emotional piece. It's a piece. It's a big part of this. And it's the perfect storm of emotions with the parents feeling excited. I remember with mine, some days I'm like, I can't wait for them to be gone. And then other days I'm sobbing, which I'm not even a crier,
Right.
So parents have the roller coaster and the kids obviously do too. It's super awesome to be able to get out on your own and do whatever you want, but it's scary at the same time. So I think it's great to have people like you that, kids it's just a different world too now compared to when I was a kid. I mean, I think maybe I was oblivious, but I was just like a happy-go-lucky kid. I had parents that were pretty intense and had expectations, but I wasn't stressed. And it just seems like there's just a lot of stress on kids now. And it doesn't seem like they get the opportunity to be kids, which makes me sad because once you get married and you have kids and you buy a house, then there's adult stuff and you have a crummy boss and you get fired and adult stuff. And if you haven't had you need each chapter in my opinion. So when they don't get that chapter and they get thrown into all this stress when they're younger, it's just hard. And parents can't stop that,
Mhm.
society and friends and all that, but they can show up in a way that kind of helps it and doesn't add to it. So we
Definitely.
talked about, yeah, we talked about the roller coaster in the last episode, but today we're going to focus on your child is being dropped off and the chapter is here and then they're there and you drive away. So
Yeah.
um that how is this roller coaster is a little different than when they're in high school, I would think, right?
Absolutely. It's a after graduation, there's another like emotional roller coaster that happens. Like you get off one roller coaster and just get on another one, and it carries on. We're not a theme park, and so the summer before college transition. When I work with girls, I notice their fears are starting to bubble, and so the senior year, the pre-admission part is very scary, but once they get admitted, once they commit, once they go through like all the pomp and circumstance of graduation, the parties and things like that's just fun, and the endings and all that yay stuff. The summer fear bubbles, and what happens is they start to go through different stages, and one of the stages is second guessing their decision. Like, have I made the right decision? Am I going to the right school? Maybe I should have gone to this one. Maybe I should have done this. Like they go through the should haves, what I call it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're shoulding all over yourself, which sounds kind of gross, right? Like when you should all over yourself. And so that's just going through this like feeling of just real like insecurity. Like, am I doing the right thing? And also, girls, the most common fear that girls relay to me is they're just so afraid if they're going to make friends or not. They're just terrified about meeting new people and making friends. And these are the people that have huge friend groups that have never had issues before.
Yeah,
Because
they're
making
social.
friends,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. And it's scary to go to a place with thousands of other people and make friends. And also, we know like the orientations happen in the summer, and as you mentioned earlier, some schools have every college does everything differently. Nothing's the same anymore, and so some colleges have orientations in the summer that are very student centered. They're very fun. It's like going to summer camp, and it's all about including kids in small groups and making kids participate, pushing parents somewhere else so they're not in their faces. But then we've got some schools that have like a day orientation that the parents walk around with their kids the whole time.
Yeah.
And so there are all these different situations, but what happens is at orientations, because schools have different experiences, what are kids doing while they're there? They pick up these things and they're posting everything and they're like, I've already made my best friends and I've already found this friend group. And this is happening. So kids are getting stuck in comparison because of social media. And that's added to some schools do orientation better than others. And also, kids feel very left out at orientation because they see these automatic, what they think groups of friends. But what they don't understand is a lot of people from their same high schools go to the same orientations. So it's people that like just travel from their high school to this university and they're just at orientation together. So it appears to other people that all these friend groups have formed, but they really haven't. It's not,
Yeah.
this is just like a
Yeah.
sample size of your whole freshman class. This
Yeah.
is just like, a couple thousand of like several thousand kids that are going to be on campus with you. And so kids can get really scared after orientation. It's not a calming experience, I think, that it used to be, where
Yeah.
you get your schedule, you find out your dorm, you get to feel like you're a student for a couple of days. Now it's very different. So that summer transition to involve orientation and the I guess just discomfort of not knowing what's coming next is what the girls worry about and making friends, of
Yeah, and we
course.
talked about
Yeah.
this on the last episode. One of your best quotes is they need, you help kids or girls become comfortable being uncomfortable and
Yep.
realizing it's going to pass and you're going to work through it and you come out on the other side. And that's just part of life and it's okay. And some kids just aren't, they're not used to being very uncomfortable, especially if they've been fortunate enough to not have any big life things that have come up in their first 18 years. And
Right.
if parents have kind of protected too. That's why it's important for kids to, have those moments of being uncomfortable as they're younger because they're
Mhm.
there. But I think a lot of parents like to swoop in because it's like they want everything to be perfect. And as we all know, there's no perfection. But I think with orientation too, and I'm a little removed from this, so you see it all the time. But with my kids, it seemed like, a lot of times private schools, they do it right before. The
Right.
kids come early and then they swoop them right in. Like my son went to Indiana, go Hoosiers, and he had to go in June, like you said, and my
Mhm.
husband brought him. We weren't gonna both fly there. He registered. He made some friends and everything, and it was fine. But I'll go into that at the drop off. But like my daughters, she went to James Madison, go Dukes, and it was phenomenal. They're known for the I forget what they
Mhm.
called it. They had it was like 1778 or something. They had a name for it, and they basically swooped these kids the minute we weren't even done. Like Sean's like, "Mom, you haven't shown me how to use the washing machine here. It's gonna be different than home." She was really stressed about that. But they were just like, "All right, you got an hour." And then they just had them in 2 o'clock in the morning eating pizza. They didn't have time to go, "Oh, mom and dad left." Oh, and they were
Mhm.
mushing them together so intensely that it was dramatic to me, the difference between my son's first 2 weeks and my daughter's. But the
Yeah.
schools, that was a state school that did it in more of, in my opinion, a private school way, because I think IU is more the norm. Like, here's admitted
Mhm.
student days, pick which one works with your schedule. We were flying from Seattle, but a lot of Indiana kids were just driving to IU for the orientation. So
Mhm.
that you'll figure out once your kid gets to that point, but it can be different. And it is an opportunity for them to make friends if they can, right?
It
And
is,
to your point, I
totally.
know some schools, like, they have kayaking trips and you
Oh,
pay.
yeah.
So it's when the cha-ching really kicks in, because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
paying for this as a parent. It's not free. But I mean, they're trying to get the kids just into it, right, ahead of
Mhm.
time and trying to help. But some schools are great and some schools there isn't as much emphasis. So, it just depends. So we talked about, for high school kids, there were
Mhm.
certain stressors. For a college freshman, there might be some of the same stuff, but there's going to be some definitively
Mhm.
different stuff. So what do you see as the biggest stressors that parents need to be aware of, that, this is coming down?
Okay. Um, I think you mentioned that getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable is the biggest stressor, I think, because your nervous system is overloaded those first few weeks of college. Like every sense is different. Nothing is the same. The food you eat's different. The bed you sleep on's different. The lights, the sound, it's an overload. So you're kind of in this state of high alert. And so the kids' nervous systems are just going, 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 going. And so that's uncomfortable. And I think a great way to prepare for that is in the summer before college, practice being comfortable being uncomfortable. Meaning, and one of the ways that is great for kids is to start making real life phone calls. Like pick up your cell phone and use it as a phone, right? Can you believe it's a phone? Use it as a phone. Like make the dinner reservation, call in your own prescription, make your eye doctor appointment, make your next appointment to see your doctor, because you said you should see your physician before you go to school to make sure your prescriptions are up to date, to make sure your shots and that kind of thing. Use the phone, and every time you pick it up, yes, your heart rate's going to go up a bit, and you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you're going to maybe be goofy and say something that doesn't make a lot of sense. But guess what? You're not that goofy, and you're going to figure it out, and you're going to say words and sentences and communicate to this other human on the other end of the line that's going to make sense, and you guys are going to solve a problem together. And then you're going to hang up that cell phone and you're going to be like, oh, that was not fun, but I didn't die. And so the next time you do that, you're not going to feel as uncomfortable. So that's one way to help to practice being uncomfortable. And other ways is to reach out to people that you normally don't hang out with. Like maybe there was a cool like guy that you hung out with in your yearbook class that was hysterical, and just one of your friends that you didn't necessarily hang out with in your small friend group. Well, reach out to that guy and go have a coffee together and practice having conversations with people that you're not used to talking to, because making friends and meeting people is a skill. It's an art. It's something you can learn to do. You don't just friends don't just automatically happen. And so learning to make yourself comfortable being uncomfortable, and because when you practice it over and over, it's like building a muscle. You get practiced, you learn it, and you're not going to die, and you get better at it. And then you realize that yes, I don't feel comfortable right now, but I know this is temporary, and I know that I can trust myself to make decisions to get myself through this and to persevere. And so I think that's important in the summer. And now I've lost the question. I went
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far off.
Well, you were like, major stressors, and you said the
Oh,
major one for sure
mhm.
is, feeling having that pit in. I mean, I had it till like November 1st, literally. And the minute I
Yeah,
stopped being pit in my stomach, I woke up and I'm like, this is home now. Like, this is home, this
yeah,
dorm room and this bed and my roommate, started
yeah,
being uncomfortable, and she was on like, this is so great for 2 months. And then she went there. Yeah. So, and everybody, I
right.
don't care what kid, every kid is gonna feel this way. They're just not gonna talk about it with people
They
they
are.
don't know, right? But,
Yeah,
everybody's kinda in the same boat of feeling, some kids might feel more uncomfortable than others, but everybody's got a twinge of this is new and different, and adults feel that when you, like,
absolutely.
go
And it's
somewhere and it's brand new and you move somewhere and you don't know anybody,
It's homesickness. And homesickness, and we said in the last episode, and I'll say it again, homesickness is love. And when you're homesick, you just love something and that's beautiful. It is beautiful to love something and to miss it. And so there's no shame in feeling homesick. And
it's not a
every kid
baby thing. It's not a baby
Oh,
thing.
not at all. And
Yeah,
as an adult, like as a 50-year-old adult, I get homesick. Like if I go on vacation, the last few days, I'm ready to come home because I love my home. I have a sense of place that's very important to me. And I will get a homesickness feeling every time I leave my house as an
yeah,
adult. But I know that that's just because I love where I live and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think understanding that every kid on campus is hit with homesickness at some point. Some kids don't get it until like February. They don't get it until after Christmas break or after the holiday break. And so it hits at different times and other kids feel it. And the homesickness window, when everybody's uncomfortable, is like the most right window to make connections because your connection with somebody can almost be kind of trauma bonding. Almost like, I miss home. I miss my dog. And people will be like, oh my God, I miss my dog too. And so you just talk about your dogs and then you talk about
yeah.
home and then you've connected with somebody and you've been like vulnerable with them and you've been authentic and that's how you make true connections. And so that uncomfortable time can is if you understand everybody else is too, and take advantage of that and get yourself out there. And those first few weeks, if especially those first few hours when you land on campus and your parents have left, and maybe you're not at a university like James Madison that has the kids
Right.
corralled, like we're gonna go do this. You're not. Let's go because most places you just kind of get dropped off and you have one
Yeah.
RA meeting and then classes start and that's it. And so a great piece of advice is to help people move in. Get out of your room, help people carry their boxes, help people unpack, ask if you can help. Can I help you put together your bedside table? Can I help you put together this lamp? Can I carry this for you? Just get out and get your body moving to help other people is a great way to make
Yeah,
connections
or if
right when you land on
somebody's
campus.
sitting in their room alone, it's like, "Hey, I'm so and so. You wanna go get a
Yeah.
coffee?" Yeah, just like it, because it's funny, like, my son, we moved him in. This was the other extreme of JMU, and his RA had a meeting and just was like, "Guys, I don't care what you do, just don't write on the walls because I have to clean it. Okay, go, bye." Like, he wasn't this nurturing, and it was a boys' dorm. And my son's roommate, he was from Chicago, wasn't coming till the next day. So he didn't even have a roommate to interact with. And he was like, Mom, thank God I met people at orientation, because he just texted them and was like, hey,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing? And then he went and saw them. But I thought, talk about a parent like owning when they mess up. My husband and I told our kids, like, don't worry, everybody's in the same boat. Nobody has any friends. Well, both my kids went to state schools, right? So
Mhm.
Brennan gets to IU and he's like, Mom, these people all know people. And we're not all in the same boat. And like, my husband and I went to a private school, so we're like, we screwed up on that one. So he really, I mean, I have a goal. How am I going to reach it kind of kid? He's always been like that. So he was like, all right, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make friends. And the bottom line is, if your kids are going, I'm not trying to scare parents that their kids are going to an out of state school like mine did, but you got to realize the kids, they're going to bond at the beginning with their friends from their high school, even if it was a kid they really didn't like that much, because
Yeah.
they're scared. So it's like, oh, I know Suzanne, even though we didn't hang out in our friend group, I can go talk to her and I'm not by
Yeah.
myself. And so we explained that to Brennan, and that's exactly what happened. These kids they started getting comfortable and then finding the people that they wanted to be friends with. And it wasn't necessarily the high school kid they decided to cling to the first 2 days because they're freaked out because their parents drove away and they're by themselves. So really different experiences at different schools. And your kids are all different, right? My kid had a certain personality. He literally, Suzanne, told us not to come to freshman parents weekend because he's like, I'm really trying to make friends and we're going to this concert. And if you're here, I can't.
Mhm.
And I'm like, enough said. I don't have to buy yet another plane ticket. We've spent
Right.
so much
Yeah.
money. We kind of were high fiving each other when we hung
I
up because
know.
he was just like, this is what I'm focusing on socially.
Mhm.
And, I hope I'm not hurting your feelings. I'm like, no, no, no. I totally get it. So, every kid's
Mhm.
going to respond to it differently, but hiding in your room and waiting for somebody to pull you out, like JMU did it, but that's not the norm. You
Mhm.
gotta just, even if it's taking a walk and you run into somebody as you're leaving the dorm and you're just going to go walk around the quad or whatever, just get out, don't just sit
Absolutely.
and wallow because then it just builds and it can get overwhelming. So what
It's
about
isolating.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the
And
whole
yeah.
emotional side. So what about academically? This should be a step up for virtually every kid. Parents are paying all
Mhm.
this money. It should be harder than high school. So what do you see in that realm? And college is different. You don't have tests every week. It's a different deal.
Right. So it is a very different type of learning. And so I actually created a system for girls or that they can get because I was so upset with how kids land on campus and have no idea how to learn. Because what happens is in high school, teachers review and review and review and teach and teach and teach. And because my prior job as an assistant principal, I was over instruction and I was making sure that teachers were good teachers, that they knew how to teach. And part of what I would teach them is that in order for a kid to learn something, they have to have exposure to a new term at least 7 times. Your brain has to have exposure to something at least 7 times before it goes from short term memory to long term memory. And so, what happens in high school is that kids don't really have to study that much because the teachers are reviewing and repeating these terms so often through lectures, through, turn in this Google Doc, turn in this, do this lab, do this paper, this, reminders on the whiteboard that their brains just automatically have these terms go into long-term memory. So then when they get on the college campus, they have to understand that the syllabus is like their guide. And the syllabus, if it says on August 27th, chapter 2, that means you read chapter 2 before August 27th. And that means that the professor is basically giving a lecture that might be a little bit about chapter 2, but you're still responsible for that entire chapter. And so the lecture ends up being like a complement to what you're learning. So you're responsible for understanding and reading that material before you land in class. The lecture is a complement, but then that's only 2 times your brain has been exposed to this information. So in order for you to remember it, that puppy up there needs 5 more times. And guess whose responsibility that is? The students. And the students are like, what? I'm like, yeah, you've got to do this. Nobody's going to review this for you because next class is chapters 3 and 4. And they're moving
Right.
on.
Right.
And so they're not going to talk about chapter 2 again. And so I have this smart girl flow where you actually, as the kids sit down and I show them exactly what you do after class. And it requires some things for the kids. Number one, do not go back to your room after class. Nope. We do not go back to our rooms. We find a third space that is comfortable where we can focus, where we can sit down just for 30 minutes. Sometimes it's just 15 minutes. And for that amount of time, you open your notes, you open chapter 2, you open your lap book, all your technology, and you go through the notes that you took in class. And going through those notes, first of all, gives your brain what? Round 3 with these terms. But also, I promise every time you review your notes right after class, you are going to find a place where you made a mistake, where you wrote a number down wrong, where you wrote a term down incorrectly, and you are able to correct your mistakes because everything that professor said you heard, hopefully, and it's still sitting in short-term memory. I call it your
Yep.
fishbowl.
Yep.
It's still retrievable. And therefore it's retrievable. So you can take notes. You can highlight what you have questions about. You can write down what you're going to ask in office hours. And your brain has now had exposure 3 times to those terms.
And there might
And
even be stuff that I didn't, if they're on their
yeah,
laptop taking notes, I'm assuming that's what
right.
kids do now. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he said that and I couldn't type fast enough, so now I can add it.
And you could, because you just heard it and you
Yep.
remember it. And what happens is kids don't understand that daily routine of review is because your brain has to have that in order to learn the stuff. And so if you wait until 2 nights before your next or your big test, when you go back and review, chapter 2 and what your professor lectured on, you don't remember it and you don't remember those details. And like you said, you don't remember to add in the stuff. You're like, oh, I forgot this part. All of
Yeah.
that's gone. And you're basically reintroducing this to your brain. And your brain's like, what? I didn't have to remember this. So I didn't, because it went from short term to out of my brain because I didn't have to know this. And so it's
Yeah.
learning to train your brain. And so I
Yeah.
think that is like the key with kids understanding. And I think the other biggest academic challenge is the fact that they're 24 hours in a day. And on most college campuses, you have class for maybe 2 hours, three max. So you've got 22, 23 hours of your day that's unstructured. And kids have gone from highly structured lives since preschool. Because in high school, most big high schools, bells ring to tell you when to change classes. That bells tell you when to eat. Their kids are like Pavlov's dogs. Like it's
Yeah.
when you go to your car and leave. Like it's automatic. And then you leave, you go to sports practice, you go to work, you go volunteer, you go home, do homework, rinse and repeat the next day. They've done that their whole lives. And then suddenly they're in school and they're in college and there's no schedule whatsoever. And every day is different. Like your classes on Monday and Wednesday are different than your classes on Tuesday and Thursday. And college schedules are so strange now. Like kids will have like 1 4-hour Tuesday class a week and that's it. It's very strange. It used to be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. And that's really
Yeah.
different.
Yep.
So every day is not the same. And
Yeah.
so kids, it's very important to think out of the gate, how are you going to structure your day? Because guess what? It's your responsibility.
Yep.
Nobody's telling you when to study. Nobody's telling you when to eat, when to exercise, when to just get out and take a walk. And the number one enemy that kids are going to school with is this thing. And I tell kids and their parents that cell phones do two things to students. Number one, they isolate students because they go in their rooms and they rot, they scroll, and it isolates you, and also it makes you you get stuck in this loop of comparison, and it makes you feel like you don't belong because you've isolated yourself, which is horrible. And then you're watching all these other people and your brain, and you're convincing yourself that you don't belong. And
Yeah.
those are two incredibly damaging things to happen. And so cell phones are very dangerous. And while they're wonderful and they're kids' forms of communication, those first few weeks, students really have to be cognizant of their screen time. And it's very comfortable to grab your phone and go crawl in your bed
Yep. Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
don't have to engage. You don't have to put yourself out there because engaging with others is scary. It makes your heart rate go
Well,
up.
yeah, and it can be exhausting and all that
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, it's just work in a room and and it's not everybody's love, a lot of people that's, it's not easy. So yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's all great. So in the point here is like this is all normal. And I wish I had
Yeah.
known you, but when I was an undergrad, because that would have been really good for me to do that.
I
Never did
wish
that.
I had known that at undergrad. I know because I think like, because, of course, like I was a high achiever, like straight A's all the time. And then in college, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know. And then cramming didn't work. And it took me a while to figure it out. But then after studying how kids learn for so many years, I'm such a nerd about curriculum and instruction. When I discovered that gap and I was like, oh, here we go. We can help kids. Like I can help students because the gap is the fact that they don't understand. They'll say, I know it's my responsibility to learn, but they don't know what to do to make it happen. So like I've got steps that say this is what you do. And then once you figure out how to do it, you take over. I don't want you to need my steps. I want them to just become part of your daily routine. And this is your study flow every day. And your brain's like, I recognize this because if you sit down and do that review for 15 to 30 minutes, sometimes it might be an hour if you got a test coming up, whatever, it's school. Like you got to do it. It's your job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
why you're there.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
After all.
but don't go back to your room because when you go back to your room, you pick up your cell phone, you rot, you start eating, you start getting distracted, and you got to just find that third space.
Oh,
That's
yeah, when
important.
I was a kid, obviously, there were no cell phones, there were no computers, so
Oh
but it
yeah.
was like, you can't go back to your dorm because then people are screaming and people are doing this and people
Oh
come in your
yeah.
room and they wanna chit-chat, and I was a big stacks person, you gotta pick where you're comfortable. I used to go to the graduate library stacks and just then I could do that after class if I had known to do what you're saying, but just in general, when you need to do your big,
Yeah.
long study sessions, some people do great in a coffee shop and they have their
Yep.
sound, whatever,
The noise
you can't hear
canceling headphones,
anything, or you've
which
got
yeah.
Enya going or something calming, and people could be screaming their coffee order and you can't even hear it. So, and that wouldn't work for me, but for some people, whatever works for this, and they have to figure it out. I think the
They
other
do.
thing is the grades because a
Mm.
lot of kids, like you said, they're straight A students and they go to college and their first test comes back and it's a B minus and there's only 2 or 3 of them for the whole semester.
Or it's a
So
D.
and they
D's
freak
happen.
out, it's like, and I
Mhm.
think just preparing kids, there's curves, there's all this stuff going on. I mean, there is great inflation at at high school level, but also in
Oh,
college
it's horrible.
still.
Yeah,
But you're not necessarily gonna get straight A's, and you just, again, my mantra, just do your best. If your best is a
yeah.
B, fine, it's a
That's
B, and
awesome. Yeah,
ultimately, with jobs down the road, there's very few jobs that are like, "What was your GPA?" It's really what
yeah,
you did in summers, and if you worked with a it's who you are. It's not your
absolutely.
GPA, except in rare I know if you're going to med school, you need certain stuff and all that, but in general, if you're gonna graduate, there's also that leveling that parents can do throughout the time, like, "It's okay. You don't have to have straight A's like you did in high school. You have to do your
Right.
best." But I think I remember a call from my daughter. I got a D on such and such. And I'm like, okay, let's just see what happens the next time. Talk to like, again, to
Yeah.
your point, like I taught my kids in high school. You have a problem with your teacher, go talk to her. I'm not coming in.
Yes.
You respectfully talk
Yep.
to her. If it goes in a way that is not appropriate, of course I'll come
Mhm.
in. It never did. And they dealt with some hard situations where the teacher actually behaved in a way that wasn't the best, but I made
Mhm.
them. So then in college, it's like, talk to the professor, get some help. Maybe it's a TA that's going to help you, depending on the size of
Yeah.
the class and how the school has it organized in that class. But go get the help. And
Go
she
to
ended up
office
being on
hours.
Dean's List a bunch there. So, and we
Mhm.
didn't freak out and go, oh my God, maybe she's not college material, all that kind of stuff where parents can just go that way. Like, this kid did great in high school. What is going on? And it could have just been she was homesick and stressed or this or that.
Mhm.
And she wasn't even focused to do it. It could have
Yeah, or
been a whole bunch.
she didn't give her brain the opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just, and I think you have to make mistakes to learn. Like that's what all brain research teaches us. Like that's how we learn. And so making the college mistakes is part of the journey. And also students who've never like failed at anything, like students, especially like super high achieving kids who've never made B's or they made like one B in like calculus BC or something. And they're like president of this and they've like super like I win everything. When they get to these schools, they're on campus with people who are just like them,
Right.
and
Right.
so there's suddenly like a little fish in a big pond. And it's difficult because there are going to be people that are smarter than you. Guess what? And there are going to be
And
people
that's
that are,
actually
yeah,
great as you learn from them,
absolutely.
you
You
know.
do. And so I think we have to give our kids that window to assimilate and to understand that, like, oh, this is a whole different world and they're different people and a different environment. And I'm learning who I am and my strengths and weaknesses. And a lot of learning is their weaknesses. Like, I thought I was a great math student until I took calculus in college. And then not me, I was an English major. Don't make me take calculus. But you go to office hours and you ask questions and you introduce yourself to the professor. And if you go to a big state school like I did, I went to UNC Chapel Hill, huge school, loved it, super like academic school, but the professors, I didn't know professors my freshman and sophomore year. No, they didn't care. Like I didn't either. But then I realized my junior year, I was like, wait a minute. Like I'm actually in these English classes that I'm interested in, and I'm finally like digging into, college. And I started meeting professors and talking to them and going to office hours. And that's when everything changes. And
Yeah.
so I think students, it's more important to start that early, to start that freshman year, and to just understand that like the professors want you there. They love when kids come to office hours. Like I have a lot of professor friends that I know through Instagram, through my business, and they beg kids to come. They have great candy. They have all these incentives because they're bored. They're like, come
Yeah.
see us, come hang
Well,
out.
and
And
that's why if they really like teaching and it's not just a
yeah,
research and then they have to do this, a lot of profs, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of office hours go empty. I
yeah.
mean, even where I went to school, we had a giant intro bio. And
Mhm.
I would go, I remember because he used to wear his slippers during office hours. I thought it was hilarious. But I would go talk to him. And
Yeah.
but that every school's different. There might be some
Mhm.
schools that are like, no, the prof doesn't do that. But he has his graduate students that you go and talk to. I mean, all schools, they have office hours, they have support. And that's something when you're doing campus tours, you should
Right.
get a feel for how that school does it and what's going to mesh the best for your kids. But
Yeah.
there's always that. So I think, but that's that whole thing that if it paralyzes them to think about, I'm going to go talk to somebody I don't know and ask questions. How
Right.
could I ever do that? That's a skill that you want your kids to develop in hell, they should be doing it in 5th and 6th grade. They should be doing
Right.
it throughout their whole life and getting used to doing it on a small scale. And to your point, even just picking up the phone, it's hilarious how kids, that's such a
Mhm.
violation. It's like, how could I call them? I don't know them. I'm like, you've been
I
texting with
just
this
feel like a
person.
violation.
You've been
It's like,
texting for 3 months and sharing your life secrets, but I could never call them, mom. That's what my kids used to say,
yeah.
millennials. And I was just like, what? You know
Right.
this person. You just haven't verbally, but that was scary. So I think
Yeah.
being uncomfortable, moving through that, and parents, you got to build these life skills because it's going to help them be more
Right.
comfortable when they get to college. And honestly, to be employable, you got to make connections and be able to do all this. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just really important. So it's just, and parents know that, you're in jobs and you had to
Right.
network to get here and there, and your kids need to learn how to do that, throughout their life. So when they're doing it for a job or whatever, they're like, oh, this is a skill I have. I just tweak it to do it in this venue for this purpose, right?
Right.
So, anyways, I think, well, you know what? I'm going to call an audible here. I'm just going to say
Okay.
it live. Like, we were going to get into the Greek system, but I think the Greek system can be its own episode down the road.
Oh,
I would
100%.
love to get into that with you, and I know a lot of kids are into that, so I think that can be its own episode because we're already over 30 minutes in. So, we'll hold that off. I'm telling all of you this because Suzanne was expecting me to talk about this, so she's
Oh,
probably like, "Why are we finishing, Peg?" So I think this bit, I'm not surprised. Like, our conversation was great. So I think we hit a lot of great stuff for parents hearing about this first year and transitioning for boys too. The whole academic thing. That's across
oh
the
yeah.
board, right? I love
Yeah.
your learning tips from your, being in, hardcore education. So why don't we
Mhm.
end like I like to, just if there's one or two key takeaways around what we talked about today.
Yes. So I think I always like to say that about the cell phone that this is an enemy you're taking. It will isolate you and make you feel less than. So go ahead and make your cell phone plan. And I think too, understanding that you're going from a highly structured environment to a non-structured environment, and it's your responsibility to make your own schedule, which is exciting and that's empowering. And you can do it. Kids can totally do this. They just have to know they have to be empowered out of the gate to think, yes, these are strategies you can use to get yourself organized, to make a schedule for yourself and to implement that schedule every day. And you're going to be adulting and it's going to feel so good. And kids can do it. They can.
Yeah, yeah, and just having the discipline because most college campuses, parents like, "I think they're gonna be bored. The school's in Iowa." I'm like, "No." The
Oh
kids are
no.
never bored.
Yeah,
The
they're
issue
never bored.
is having the discipline to say no to
Hmm.
this and this and this and this that's going on because they have to do their study time and, maybe they have a
Yeah.
job and whatever it happens to be. That's usually the issue. Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway, and just, like, talking about it when they're high schoolers, like, and I remember when I graduated and then I got a job and I'm like, "This stinks. I have to
Oh,
go somewhere
I
for,
know.
like, 10 hours," and
Ugh,
college is so great because you're here, and then you're here, and then
mhm,
you're here, and then you can go walk around the
right.
lake, and you can go, and
Right.
it's awesome,
Yep.
and so I think once kids get used to that, and if they know it's coming and their mindset is, "Wow, I don't have to change classes for, 5 hours
Hmm.
like high school. I can actually choose where I go." It's like, it's cool, it's empowering, and then when
It's
they're
fun.
there, they're feeling a little freaked out about it. It's like, "Oh, yeah, I talked about this with mom and dad, like,
Yeah.
I knew this was coming, and this is actually a cool thing," and they could even plan, like, "I'm gonna have downtime. I could ask my roommate to meet me at whatever that's on the meal plan and we can eat or whatever. And you
Yeah.
just start, yeah, I think once you get into it, not many, like a month in, I think most kids love it because who wants to sit in one place for 5 hours like traditional
Oh,
school?
it's the worst.
You know,
Yeah.
it's much
Yeah.
better to have the college environment. So, okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. This was wonderful, and
Thank you.
we will definitely have Suzanne on again. We will talk all about the Greek system, because that's a fun topic that you can go on for a bit. So, hope everybody got some nuggets. I know you did, and if your kids are about to go to college, pat yourself on the back. Congratulations! It's an awesome thing. And it's a new chapter starting for the family as well as the kids, and it's awesome. It's a great chapter. So,
It is.
we will see everybody next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please follow us, share the show, or maybe even share it with a parent or counselor who you think would enjoy it. I'm your host, Peg Keough. Today was part 2 of my discussion with Suzanne Hanna, the founder of Suzanne Hanna Coaching. Her mission is to empower girls to feel more comfortable in their own skin, handle life's curveballs, and just generally feel happier. This episode was produced by the wonderful I Am Masood. We'll see you back here next week.